Hey guys, can you hear us on Zoom? Okay. All right, guys. We'll get started here in a little bit. We are at the college. All right. Okay, cool. All right. I'll be back. Okay, guys. I'm gonna have this on right now. So if you're speaking, it's gonna go into Zoom. Just FYI.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Was it easy for you to connect?
Yeah.
My broke's in that. Yeah.
Cat 5.
If Ethernet? No, I don't.
Oh, you know, I was thinking for tomorrow for the research.
Oh, do I have it at the house?
Yeah.
I might have one.
This is rings and
Okay.
no, forget
What?
Wi-Fi. Just
Okay. I'm having issues with, do you have yours? Okay, try use opening in browser.
There's some.
This is crazy. I gotta present too, so I'm like, I'm about to crash out. No, please.
Something prevalent. Yeah. I wish I knew that when I started. Yeah. I was just going through and I'm like, I was like, pretty cold.
No, I set up a lab here.
I don't know nothing, bro. Like, what the heck? Yeah. There's a lot of self learning. You take it, whatever you like. I got Udemy.
I did.
Oh, yeah. I paid the year subscription, it's like 120, but you get
See how it doesn't.
Mega plus, you don't need this water and the boost. Yeah, 124, yeah. It's like a cheap, each course is like $20. And then if you don't like it, like. Do they give you? No, I mean, you could check any course you want. Like, if you don't like it, just go to the next one. That's what I did. I jumped around the
I'm never getting there.
I can't even understand it. I don't know. You know, they got different teaching stuff. Some of them are dancing, there's reading.
You see how it's like the icons kind of trying to buffer.
They got like. Yeah, I wasn't.
He did this.
He's cool, like he's a cool teacher, but like the content was like too simplified. So I got this new this guy is really good. Like if you ever can, if you ever like look into it,
Let me see.
Listen, I don't know, man.
I was able to use my friend's Wi-Fi yesterday. Hey Rob, sorry to cut you off. Are you good with connection?
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, Bert. How's it going?
I'm having issues and I need it. How you doing, bro?
Andrew.
Presenting, so I was wondering.
Oh, yeah, you're presenting?
Yeah, so I can't connect to this damn one.
Oh, you know, the Peralta? That's okay. Yeah, I'm on internet.
Yeah, I'm on too. I think it's his.
It's mine. It's like, I'm about to crash out.
So,
Man.
and if you go to like, just whatever.
Go to Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
There
I
was
was
a person that came by to open doors, but
I know.
Muted connection.
Help yourself to some sugar and hot chocolate. All right, guys, we are at school.
He's getting my.
You can't check the connection? Or they give you the app and check the connection, like break out the stove top.
Says I'm not connected. I can't even get help because I cannot connect.
Oh, really?
Sometimes,
It said no, so you're not giving an IP.
I'm not.
We're gonna give a few minutes for everyone to get settled here.
I mean, this happens sometimes to my home. For me, it's often the Wi-Fi card, and if I restart, like,
It works.
that sometimes can reset it, and but you might check the device settings. And see, to make sure that your Wi-Fi card is actually,
Up to date.
well, just recognized and operating.
You can install this right here. Let's see if that's.
Okay, guys, all right, we're gonna give few minutes for everyone to get settled in. Is your Wi-Fi not working?
Yeah, he's not able to
It's,
connect.
it's causing a problem. I just, I disabled some drivers. But for some reason, it's not wanting to connect.
Professor said it didn't have a DCHP server, couldn't find one. It says laptop.
Oh, the laptop
Yeah,
said
it said he couldn't
DHCP.
find a DCHP server.
Oh, you have tail scale on.
I just,
Did you turn it off?
I uninstalled the driver for Tailscale.
No, no, where is your tail scale?
I don't think it's something, right? Yeah, I guess it is. It's just a conference.
Wasn't sure if it was like
It's like-
that someone left or. What's that?
Oh, no. What?
Thanks.
Looks like it's like sensitive.
There we go.
Well, you maybe
Yeah.
restart your computer.
Yeah, the only thing, we should avoid that. Because otherwise we're limited to, the parole document. Which might be, like, I don't know if we connect, directly, if we have access to that same. Was it by five? So we'll just actually try to see. I don't know.
I think the Wi-Fi won't work on my
What's that?
tablet. Yeah, the Wi-Fi is not working on my tablet.
Oh, it's not. But you're not confident.
Yeah, my laptop's fine.
Huh.
No, the hotspot is nice. So.
You'll have
Do
to
that.
reboot and see how it
Here.
does.
Okay.
Let's see.
It's the irony of this
Yeah.
department having spotty internet.
All right, guys, how are you doing? Okay. Good. Morning. Good morning, guys. We'll get started here in a minute or so. As we get started, does anyone want to share any security news from last week? All right, let's see. Security news from last week, anyone? All right. So this is the real hacker news in that sense, if you see it on your screen. You might have seen there was some news about OpenAI's browser being hacked already. Already, right? And then this is maybe a good news to look into where, let me pull it up. By the way, can you guys hear me okay on the Zoom?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Just making sure. Yeah, so this there is a lot of, this is a good one to take a look at, but a lot of bad guys are now using AI to do the attacks. So that was expected, but it's happening right now. Cool. Yep.
For like a code extension for VS Code, how would you like try to, I guess, find if there's any malware in it or any ransomware in it? It's before downloading it.
So you you want to make sure you're downloading it for someone you trust, or there is a rating system, but there is no scanning utility for
You
it.
can't scan it, right?
But if you have like a CrowdStrike Falcon or something like that, as soon as it's found that these extensions, so this is the marketplace.
Yeah.
If it is found, then Microsoft itself will pull it down. But if it is not found, and you kind of, this is sort of the app store of Microsoft. Um, so if things make in here and they have, they're malicious, then it's Microsoft's job and they kind of do it. But then there is a good chance that, a lot of things kind of go under the radar. But here you will see, if you are downloading any extensions from the marketplace, then they are verified by Microsoft, they're scanned by Microsoft. But it is possible for you to just pull something from GitHub too.
Yeah.
And so in that case, you want to double and triple check, the developer you are getting the code
Also,
from.
before downloading, you just look at like what it developed by, and
You can, yeah.
kind of
But
cross-verify it.
if you are using extensions from here, like any of these top ones, they are fine. Like,
okay.
It's sort of having an app store which is open, but there are reviews for,
So VS Code extensions, they're just open source. Anybody can.
yeah,
Contribute.
anyone can make extensions. It doesn't have like an app store where only extensions approved by Microsoft get added or anything like that. Cool. This is gonna be tricky. All right. Sorry, I have to fight. All right. Okay, cool. Any other news anyone wants to share? Anyone came across anything interesting? Thankfully, there were no outages this week, right? Cool. Awesome. So we'll jump into the content here. So we're gonna today we're gonna cover IDS and IPS. But we'll also keep some time to talk about the last week's labs you guys had. And then there's a fair bit of hands-on work for today's class, which I which I will review in the class and kind of guide you guys how to get started as well. But the majority of the content for today is going to be IDS and IPS. IDS stands for Intrusion Detection Systems, and IPS stands for Intrusion Prevention Systems. We'll begin by reviewing last week's case study. So just want to quickly, any questions from last week's homework labs case study before we start? There is number of people who have not submitted. I think everyone who is submitted so far, yours should have been graded. But the labs will be open and the quizzes will be open until the last day of the class. You will be penalized for submitting late, but I encourage you guys to actually complete and submit it.
The username and password of the lab is not, I was not able to log in.
Say that again.
My username and password is not able to log into the lab simulation.
Which lab? NetLabs or TryHackMe?
NetLabs.
NetLabs. So it's your responsibility to email me I had covered this a few times in the class already. Email me your student ID and login, and if you also stay after the class in office hours, I can reset it for you. But before, so email me, I'll reset the password for you.
Oh, okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments from last week's? Cool. Awesome. Good. It's great to see we have about 10 students in the class today, or like about 9, right? 3, 6, 7, 8 students in the class. So that's really great. Thank you for making an effort to be here in person. It's always great to put a face to the name, right? Awesome. And use this time to interact. We'll kind of do more breaks when we're in person. So you can kind of talk to each other, come say hello. And then I'm going to be here until 2 o'clock. So if you want to talk to me or if there is anything you guys want to discuss, there is time after the class. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll talk about the case study for the last lab. But before we jump into the case study, I was gonna see if I can pull up. You'll probably use this for your finals, but let's see. So let's see a couple of case study questions. If you can see it here, that's great. But if not, I'll read out to you guys. What does APT stand for in cybersecurity? Automated packet transmission, advanced persistent threat, application port tracker, anonymous proxy tunnel. You can shout out, you can put it into the chat. What do you guys think? Right? So this should be by now.
Questions.
Yeah. There you go. By this time, you should know that APT is advanced persistent threat. Which country is APT1 primarily associated with? Nice. Okay, cool. All right, that's China. That's right. Great. Which organization first publicly exposed APT1 in a detailed report in 2013? Anyone? Peter says Google. Why do you think it's Google? Is that right? Well, you can say Google because Mandiant now owns Google now owns Mandiant.
There you go. That's a good guess from that perspective.
So back then, Google did not own Mandiant. So what is the primary mission attributed to APT-1 according to the Mandiant report? Ransomware attacks for profit, long-term cyber espionage to steal intellectual property, financial fraud, political disinformation. 2, long-term cyber espionage. So, this is probably not talked a whole lot, but in 2013, when it was exposed, they were already very, they were actively exploiting and infiltrating in Google's network since 2008. And that's also maybe one of the reasons why Google ended up buying Mandiant eventually is it took them a bit to figure out who was stealing information and what was happening. But they were primarily stealing intellectual property from US corporates or all around the world. So which Chinese military unit is linked to APT-1? Unit 8200, 61398, 7455. In the chat, people are saying 61398. Is that right? All right, awesome, correct. Let's see. What types of targets did APT-1 most often attack? Gaming servers, US and international corporations, personal home networks, academic networks. All right, US corporation, great job. Which of the following techniques did APT-1 commonly use to maintain persistence? Web shells and remote administration tools. Is that right? Anyone disagrees? Let me see in the chat. Okay. Great. Nice. What network indicators were frequently seen in APT-1's activity? DNS tunneling, HTTP beacon, NTP synchronization, excessive ARP broadcast, IPv6 routing anomalies. What do you guys think? So this you learned about this last class, right? So they were using DNS tunneling. So what was like the cool trick of getting data out with DNS? When you can ship out files over DNS, right? What is that technique called? Anyone? I mean, what's the technique of shipping out files on DNS called? Yeah, exfiltration over DNS, right? It's the technique is exfiltration. Why was APT-1 report significant for cybersecurity community?
Yeah.
It was the first confirmed state-sponsored ransomware case. It publicly attributed a Chinese military unit. It introduced new crypto algorithms. It proved zero trust was ineffective. What do you guys think? It was first state, what some people say. That's incorrect. What's the correct answer? 1. That's right. It's the first publicly attributed Chinese military unit. You also should kind of think that, ransomware is not something which APT-1 did, right? Can someone tell me which is the country which heavily is involved in ransomware? Anyone? Here's Rob saying North Korea, Peter saying Russia.
At a state-sponsored level?
State-sponsored level.
Democratic Republic of North Korea.
It's not Korea. They have um, significant revenue from ransomware. Is there foreign exchange source? Which defensive actions can organizations take to detect APT1 like threats? Monitor outbound traffic and DNS requests for known C2 domains, disable all antivirus software, avoid software updates, only inspect inbound email. Should be pretty obvious. Monitor outbound traffic patterns, right? Cool. Awesome. All right. Sweet. Any other comments on APT1? What you guys read on? Go ahead.
I couldn't find any targets that they were able to breach, like any name to a company, it just like infrastructure, just basically like sectors. They said like IT, aerospace, but I couldn't find like a actual name of a company which they breached.
Sure. Hello. Hi. So let's see. So how many of you guys use ChatGPT or Claude with like APT1? You did, right? Did you use like the template format trying to find IOCs or stuff like that with, okay, great. So let's try. APT1 corporations known to be breached by APT1. But having said that, this is one way, but how many of you guys tried the MITRE attack side in their list of threat actors? You did, right? So the cool part is not like, the AIs, of course, like have known history of hallucinating. So you want to be very careful before, you kind of see, but here the AI has thrown out some names like Coca-Cola, Westinghouse Electric, Solar World, so on and so forth. But one thing, if you kind of see here is Google is not named here. So it's not publicly documented, but APT1 was heavily infiltrated. Google was heavily infiltrated by APT1. It's not publicly said, but it's not publicly acknowledged by Google. Oh, they did? Let me see. When was that? Really? Incident. Yeah, that's weird. Let's see. Google, you said Google stock holder issue. Yeah, this might be better. Yeah, because were you were you able to find something like that? That would be good to have, because you will see, like, they at least their search doesn't seem to. I might also be wrong about Mandiant. Mandiant is
Oh,
yeah, and then So in 2002, they were acquired. I think they were acquired, then they were spun out, and then they were acquired by Google. Let's see, that'll be kind of good to know.
When I used ChatGPT to get the list of companies, it said they weren't verified. It said I would have to search up. I could
I-
make papers on it.
But they were not verified.
Uh,
Got it. Yeah, I'll look up the Google more in detail. And if any of you guys find the Google links, please send it on the chat as well on Discord.
Is that Google trying to hide it?
No, not so much. The problem was like, uh, they weren't trying to hide it. It just uh, they couldn't figure out exactly what hall they took. So they remain quiet about it for a bit. So now they have what's the Google 0-day team called? So since then, they Project 0-day, or what's the Google Project Zero? Yeah. So since then, they actually started the Google Project Zero, and you will see that it was started in 2015, primarily because, it was the 0 days were being used to kind of get into companies like Google, right? And so they started a whole security initiative called Project Zero. But this was in turn, like it wasn't like they didn't completely kind of give out like all the things APT1 kind of did on their networks, because they themselves were ill prepared for it. And that's like one of the reasons. They didn't have malintent, but they just didn't have that much information. So I would kind of say, like that would be one way to look at it. And then the other way to always look for threat actors is MITRE. MITRE has like a pretty authoritative, but it's pretty short, like list on the APTs, and you will find some of these things on the MITRE website. Cool. Let me see if they have, yeah, they just have the Mandiant stuff. Okay, cool. Any other questions, comments?
Mandiant has some YouTube videos that showed like that was following what the threat actors were doing. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if anybody else watched those videos. So.
Did anyone watch the Mandiant YouTube video? Cool. You want to send a link to it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be. What did you learn from the video?
I don't know if Mandiant was trying to troll them, but there was one part where it was like, oh, this person took over an hour to crack something, and so we just fast forwarded or something. I thought that was pretty fun. But, yeah, it was interesting. YouTube is actually my number one search engine.
So there is also, I don't know if Darknet, have any of you guys heard of Darknet Diaries? It's pretty, the podcast, yeah.
Yes.
Uh, Again? Yeah, right. I don't know if he did an episode on APT1. Yeah. Did he? No, I don't think he has an APT1. No, okay. He has pretty interesting. He had a really good one on Kevin Mitnick.
Yeah.
the Dark Red Diaries. If you saw that, if you heard, like it's a good one. It's also one of those things. It's if you are new to cybersecurity, that's like a very good motivation into like what this whole field is about. So if any of you guys have not heard of this podcast, please check it out. It's worth a listen. If you're new, especially if you're new to cybersecurity. So it's called Darknet Diaries. I will cool. And then Rob also posted a link. I'm gonna put this on Discord as well. So in case people wanna come back to it later. Okay. Cool. All right, let's keep moving forward here. All right. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about, phishing and how if you are like a blue team, how would you kind of, be very careful about, phishing emails coming into your organization today. But the main objective of APT1 was to exfiltrate. The reason I want to show you this is for you guys to become a little bit more comfortable with the chain of attack, right? Yeah, it's never like someone like hacks and takes away the information and leaves and it's all done. It's not like a heist. It's always there is a foothold where the threat actors remain in the network they infiltrated, and at some later point they will actually try to do their objective, in APT1's case, most of the times they want, what do they want? Intellectual property. So they will exfiltrate into a company's network, and at some point they want a blueprint of a chip, or they want a blueprint of like a software, or they want a blueprint of like the network. They will then steal that. So this is what one important thing to remember. All of these steps directly map to the MITRE attack techniques. So over time, initially it might seem like all these foreign mumbo jumbo words, but as you kind of learn more and as you see more and more of these attacks, it helps you to kind of have that nomenclature in place, right? So that way you know what you're looking at, and you can talk to other security experts in that nomenclature. Okay. Can someone tell me what recon means?
Information gathering.
Yeah, reconnaissance, information gathering. How do people usually do recon? Again? Nmap, that's right. What else people use for recon? DNS lookup. TCP.
Social media could be too.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So
What about
peop-
physically?
social media, physical recon too. Yeah.
Location?
Yeah. Have anyone heard of dumpster diving?
Yeah, dumpster diving.
Right.
Yeah.
Take a
So
minute, yeah.
I know that's how you got the food.
nice. You find treasure that way. Nice. Cool. Sweet. So we'll actually do this, especially something like this in a lab for your class today. You will be doing something like this today. How would you detect? So you would typically detect with like, by making sure you have tools in place where the logs are very carefully read, right? So you might or might not have heard this word before. SIM is nothing but the central place where all the security logs flow in. You might have heard of the name Splunk, the company Splunk or Elastic. There is a bunch of these log aggregation companies, which are the logs which are used for doing security, infrastructure, and event management, right? Like, so and the way you would kind of look at the logs is like, if there is like anyone visiting your website, or any IP addresses which came from suspicious lists, right? So then you would kind of flag them, and we'll sort of talk about those. Um, you know, most medium and small companies don't have the resources to be able to do something like that. Like, if you're working for like a 10 people company, or like a 90 people company, most companies don't have the resources to kind of, have a SIM, right? Because they're expensive. You need staff to manage it. So in a lot of those cases, those companies would, if there is like a nation state actor involved, their the first stop usually is they will go to FBI. So any American companies. So you want to kind of make it. So just want to give you a heads up. Office hours, I'm here up to like 1:32. Cool. Well, before we jump into ideas, any questions from what we have so far? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a general question. I mean, you mentioned the FBI and that these go to the FBI. Like, how effective are they in actually like pursuing these things? Like, if you take the big attacks, for example, that happen, like what percentage of those does the FBI actually follow up on, and in a way that results in someone being indicted or arrested, busted, like.
Yeah, so that's a good question. The short answer is just like carjacking or any of like the petty thefts. You would go to police and they send you home. Like, we're gonna look into it. FBI does something similar to most small and medium businesses, but nevertheless, since this is all, I will kind of find there is a local website where you can kind of report these. Yeah, Internet Crime Complaint Center. This is the one. So if you report to Internet Crime Complaint Center, like, you can file a complaint, but what this will actually, it's not gonna that your individual complaint's gonna resolve, but it's gonna give them enough insight, and at some point something kind of balloons up pretty high, and then that becomes a radar. A good example of this is, have any of you guys come across this a big which eventually became a big high profile thing, where a small restaurant in Seattle got their point of sale infiltrated by Russian mafia. And there is actually a Darknet Diaries episode on this, but they don't really name the restaurant. But it's one of those, like, they basically stole like any credit card which was swiped at the restaurant was like, scooped off by this Russian gang, because they were able to get into the point of sale system of this restaurant. What happened is this restaurant actually went out of business because of that. But no one could help them. They couldn't do a whole bunch. But eventually, like a few years down the line, this gang, or this was like, which was related to some criminal syndicates of the Russian government, was kind of flagged by FBI. And then, some of the details from this case helped them find them. And they literally arrested this guy in Europe. That's like, but again, it didn't help the business. Eventually, it did help in the process of finding the criminal. So it does serve some purpose, but not a very immediate purpose.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I know they're like persistence was about a year on average inside companies. How do they maintain a year actually into someone's network or data? Like, do they install a back door or like how is it that they maintain that persistence?
Yeah, so does someone want to attempt to answer that? Like, let's take an example of APT1 with their RAT tools. How do they maintain persistence?
I'm going to use the case study for Target on 2013, and even though the security analyst or the SOC team, I mean, noticed the alerts on their log, but they disregarded. That was the case for them to last longer on the industry's website until the Department of Justice noticed that loss for them, and it took them longer to detect it. It was just disregarding all those events that they had on their logs. That could be a reason, in my opinion.
Yeah. So these remote access toolkits, or so one of them, since you're gonna show the SOC 2, how many of you guys read so you want to be a SOC analyst thing? So what's the C2 tool they use in that?
That's Sliver.
Sliver, right? So how would Sliver do command and control?
Send out like a beacon.
Right? So every so often it sends out a beacon, but also when you first infiltrate, so in this case, like any of the remote access toolkits, you will install a binary or a program which is listening to the wake up call. And you could do the wake up call in a million ways, but very so often the wake up call would be like, if you get a request from this particular domain saying this, then, whatever command that thing gave you, execute that command, right? So that's typically a C2. So in the how to be a SOC analyst, the C2 framework Sliver tries to mimic it, and it's got a lot of different ways to do it. But the way you will implant something onto the servers, it's usually a binary. Or now a lot of times, like that was 5-10 years ago, but now the defense people have caught up to it. So like, something like Virus Total or any of the scanning things now do a really good job of finding these binaries on your servers, right? They're like, what is this sitting? So now a lot of them, what they do is they change an existing binary. Or they kind of put in, like they use infrastructure to a defender might just seem like, oh, this is what our regularly we do. This is our day-to-day business. It doesn't, but then, then that's why you have to look at the network packets or stuff like that. So there is a lot of cat and mouse game in that. But in case of something like, how many guys of you have heard of Stuxnet? So Stuxnet is like, there is the documentary called 0 Day on it, right? Like, is that the 0 Day documentary? Was that Stuxnet, right? So let me pull up Stux. Yeah, Stuxnet, Netflix. Yeah, 0 Days. So if you see this one, this is also like if you're new to cybersecurity, this is also a great kind of documentary to get you motivated, or like, what's up here. So this is the 0 Day. Yeah. But anyways, so in Stuxnet's case, like, there wasn't anything where it phoned back home or anything like that. But the binary which was dropped had a particular date programmed in it already. So it will sit still and at some point just wake up like a zombie and start doing what it's supposed to do.
Does the network logs, does it record if a binary gets like tampered with, or
So we'll look into some of the, that's why you're going through the network analysis and Wireshark. It doesn't record anything, but if you have sufficient information in your PCAP file or in your capture files, you can put the packets together and figure out, oh, this is exactly what happened. So so there is no way you can kind of look at it in that way. And then today, when we cover IDS and IPS things, you will see that there are ways by which you can kind of make some rules. Like, if this sort of packets come in this series, then very likely something bad is happening. And so we need to kind of do something about it. But you cannot know right away. So you have to have threat intelligence for it.
So when they like mess with the binary, is it like, are they messing with like the root folder or files or any binary string will do? Or any binary
So yeah, so let's take a look. Like, when you what you will do is you will get what this phase, which is called established foothold. You're gonna do whatever it needs to get a hold into the server. You might not be root, you might just be able to live on a temp directory. So that's why there is like this one process you will kind of see often, and you will see a lot of tools when you maybe do a lot of other pen testing classes or things. You will learn about escalating privileges. So that means, like, if you were sitting in temp as running as a guest, how do you become the administrator on that machine, right? So there are ways to do that. And so that's kind of what you would do. You would escalate the privileges. So your goal is to be the administrator and get maximum privilege possible. And that's how you can do it. So typically that step is called escalate privileges. And then, if you're sitting just on one server, but you want to go to the other servers or the whole network, then you're going to do a pivot. So you're going to do that. Okay, cool. Sweet. Awesome. All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay. What I'm going to do is we're going to take a break, but before we do take a break, I'm going to show a couple things when we come back. So I'll first talk a little bit about your assignments, and what you're gonna, so that way so for next week, the case study is OPM case study. So this is an interesting one. So OPM stands for the Office of Personnel Management. So in 2015, there was a very big data breach in the US government called the OPM data breach. And so your case study for next week is the OPM data breach. There is a link to it. Feel free to use all the tools we've talked about so far, AI tools. But what I want you guys to kind of be able to, do is like be able to look at it from a technical perspective, like what exactly happened, and how we would be doing it differently. Okay, so I'm gonna talk. I'll revisit that again. So this is the case study, at least 600 words. And then I am also going to make your last class's case study live. So this one is has a little bit more weight, but you are going to choose a major security breach in last 10 years. and you're going to write a paper as well as in the last class, which is I think November 21st, you're going to present it. So you have 2 weeks to do this, but this is your last case study, which is case study 5. You're going to come up with your own one. So, maybe next class when I check in with you, I want you to kind of have make up your mind on what case study you're going to pick. But I want you to be a little bit more thorough and sort of write it in this way. I want you to do an attack life cycle analysis, and the impacts aftermath, and then the recommendations and mitigations. So this is the format you're going to write your submission for your choice of a cybersecurity breach. In some of the classes, like in I think last class, people picked up something like the Oakland breach. There's been some of the breaches in the area, but do a little bit of research before you pick something like that, because you want to be able to get enough technical detail of it. Because in case of something like Oakland breach, at that time there wasn't enough technical breach, so it made a lot of sense in terms of its being local, but at the same time you don't have any technical information. So pick a a breach where you are able to get the technical information.
Where would you find that technical information for like a breach like the city of?
Yeah, so I will pull up. So every security company, every big security company has a team called as cybersecurity research, and they have a very, very active blog. And one from Palo Alto Networks is Unit 42. And anything which they cover on that, you will see that the technical depth of it is going to be very high. So you're going to find a lot of information from cybersecurity researchers, not from news articles, right? So if you go to like Palo Alto Networks, Mandiant, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, all of the big security companies now, Wiz, all of them have a very active cybersecurity research blog, and they put out super detailed information. So, in this case, this is just a new one, right? Like I just randomly picked this one up, but you will see that, it will have some information on there, and they will kind of go a little bit more detail, right? The spyware is detailed with the DNG image exploiting like very specific CVE, right? Like they are very, very detailed, because also you want to think of this way. The cybersecurity researchers is probably if you go deep into threat analysis and defense and stuff like that, the job role you would want to go for is like a cybersecurity researcher. But it takes like really long time to actually to become a researcher. But the researchers are the ones who come up with all these techniques which the security companies use to build their products. So typically most security companies, there is one also like just down the street from here, Tenable. How many of you guys heard of Tenable? So it's one of like really big security defense companies, and so their Tenable security research is also really good. Tenable. So if you want to find information on any of the breaches you are interested in, go say, go to research of like any of the security companies. So this is Tenable's one. So this is what they did. Like, this CVE, they said, Windows Server update. Remember in the first class, we covered this one. This was the attack on Microsoft servers recently. And so this is pretty new. It's October 15th, right? That's when they published. You will see, they will say, these are the advisories which were published by different people. These are the exploits. You will see all the links. These are the references. and more, right? Like, so this is, you will, even here, you will see, like, there is Unit 42 from Palo Alto Network, there is Huntress, there is CISA. So CISA does, but again, like, I would kind of recommend, like, there is like, so even when you kind of do this, just doing this fact and kind of becoming familiar with like where to look and where not to look. Like, don't go look at Wired, like, or like any of the newspapers, because they are not going to have enough. But you can go look at CISA. You can, like, you will sort of become familiar with the lay of the land, like, who are trustworthy people who have information. Cool. So I'm gonna, yeah, if you, I will come back to it, but what I want you guys to make sure is by the next class, you make up your mind on what case study you're gonna do for the final, and then you're going to present it in the class. So there is a presentation aspect of it as well. In the last class, you'll have 5 minutes to present your case study, okay? So I'm 5 minutes. And so the way we will kind of do is introduction, your key findings, and takeaway. Like, I know like 5 minutes is really small, but we have 20 students and we have to kind of get through everyone, right? So that's sort of what we're going to do. There is also, this is a good one, different case studies, but there is like the Uber case study of 2022 is interesting one. But there is a lot of case studies. This is just a sample. You can, and if you need more ideas, feel free to, message on Discord or things like that. So this is for 150 points, the last, the fifth submission. Okay. Cool. All right. So that's for the case study. I'm going to wrap up. We're going to take a 10-minute break. And then when we come back, we'll start by talking a little bit about the labs for this class, and then we'll jump right into intrusion detection. Okay. So I'm going to leave this on the screen right now. For people who are on the Zoom, we're going to take a 10-minute break. People who are in the room here, you can, hang out, talk to each other, use restrooms, which people know about where they are. They're upstairs. So we'll come back at 10:10.
Feedback that they have that attractive cherry brain. Get, better, response, how to deal with all the false positives. That AI produces, just like other pleasant things, sort of the intersection between like the human efforts and like what like game need to do. It was interesting. Like the big takeaway was like, one, cybersecurity, as always, sort of like underfunded relative to other like areas where they can make a lot of money, right? So there's just a lot more money than available for testing, developing data, and then that's what that's really what they better data sets so that they can have better testing, and that costs a lot of money to say and
All right, guys, we'll get started here.
if you're making the data different. Gold rush sell shovels.
Hey, so what is an IDS? Anyone? Intrusion detection system, right? It the if you kind of take one key piece from this conversation today is like, as you sort of become mature as a company, as a team, as a setup, there is more and more security tooling you're going to add. So IDS systems are one of the things which you will add in your mid maturity, if you will. Before you have an IDS, you're going to have a firewall. you're gonna have, IAM or Identity and Access Management System. And then you're gonna, once you have IDS, it's gonna be useful only if you have a SIM, right? So all of these are different acronyms, but the way you want to think of it as like these are like layers of protection, right? So the layer of protection which IDS gives is around the idea of detecting suspicious patterns of activity for your network or a host, right? You could run an intrusion detection system on the network or on a specific host too, right? And today we'll kind of cover a few of those, but the way these things work is they establish a statistical baseline for what's like what looks like a regular network traffic for you. And then if any anomaly on that statistics happens, then it is going to flag it. So that's called statistical anomaly detection. The second method, which is more deterministic, and it's used pretty heavily as well, is called signature based, and we'll sort of talk a little bit about what those signature means. How many of you guys have heard of or used VirusTotal? Like, cool. So VirusTotal is like this. If you have like a virus or a bad file on your system, or you want to check something, you're going to upload it to, it's sort of like, uh oracle of whether something is a bad thing or a good or an okay thing, right? So you can upload a file to it, you can attach a URL, and it'll tell you whether this is looks benign, or it's a virus, or it's a worm, or what have you, right? So but the way VirusTotal works is it basically computes a hash of the file or the URL and kind of matches against it. So when you sort of do something like that, it's what you're really trying to do is you're trying to match signatures, whether this person looks like that person based on their signature, right? And so this is also the same technique used by IDS systems when they use rules. And so that this technique is called signature based detection. Okay. Cool. Sweet. So what's an IPS? So when you sort of take an IDS system and make it from passive to active, so like how you guys heard of in the target case study, right? Like the people on the network saw the alerts but ignored them, right? But these alerts didn't do anything. They were just like alerts, right? So when you get alerts, that's a passive system. That's an IDS system. But for example, if those alerts were done in a way that it automatically started blocking that traffic or doing preventative stuff, if you turn from an active to passive system, then that system becomes an IPS system. Cool. So basically an IPS system based on results from an IDS system, it takes action. Okay. Cool. Go ahead.
You have like an IDS system which can act as an IPS system, or they're always separate?
Two different systems.
Or two different systems?
There, you kind of think of it as the same system. You can put it into a passive mode or make it an active mode. You can, but the tooling for everything is different. It's not like one system. It doesn't like, you don't go and buy and say, oh, I want to buy an IDS. Like it's going to have layers, right? Like, and same thing, IPS. Yes, IDS, a lot of times the tools will talk about like Snort, Suricata, Zeek, all of these. They're kind of, be set in certain way, and then you can add scripts on top of it and it becomes an IPS. But that's conceptually how you want to think of it. But the toolings on both of these systems might be the same. Like how you kind of make the system. Go ahead.
One thing I wondered about with the kind of virus total approach, where essentially like you're making a hash of a program, right? And then like matching that to someone's meaning, like, isn't it as simple as it's like changing bits in your
Yeah.
program to like avoid that? And so like, seems like that would be so easy. That it would
Pretty,
Well,
it's
it
pretty useful.
so we'll talk about it, and that's true, but it's not an end all be all system, right? So the way the VirusTotal on the bigger picture, that's kind of what it does, but it's not that simple because they have also figured out what people do, and they try to don't take hashes of like XYZ, where if you just change that, it's gonna, then they have a little bit more sophisticated way of like how do you take in hash, like so it's sort of kind of think of like a Google search kind of way, right? Like they'll search in it like if this thing exists or that thing, but end of day, this method by which you kind of do stuff like that, it's called signature based. Like how you do the signature is not just like a hash, it could be very complicated, and we'll see like with the rules based, like there will be a lot of different ways, but it could be beaten in a very trivial case, like just taking the file hash. Yes, like just change a couple things in the files and you've beaten the system, right? But yeah, I think you had a comment question. Okay, good, great. Yeah, so you want to kind of think of it in that way. So how many of you guys have heard of fail to ban kind of stuff? Like, yeah, so fail to ban is a program. um it's a very simple intrusion prevention system, and you can kind of pair it with Snort, and you all of a sudden have like a really good system. For example, at Target, right? Like if they just did a fail to ban on all the things they saw in their alerts, they would have been okay for a little bit, right? Until they figured out, oh, we need to do something else. But so we'll talk about fail to ban as well a little bit, but what fail to ban is like a simple program. What it kind of does is on any of your network traffic, so you can set up like, if you're in Wireshark, for example, and you say, hey, if I get like 15 ping requests from this any IPs, just ban that IP. So you and you can kind of set up configurations like that in fail to ban, and you can also set up like only don't ban them like forever, ban them for like 10 hours, like stuff like that. You can kind of do like that. So that's an IPS system. So an example of IDS, an IDS system is Snort, Suricata, Bro, Zeek. An example of IPS is fail to ban. Zeek, I think, also does IPS. So these are, we'll go a little bit deep into Snort. But how many of you guys have used pfSense, heard of pfSense, stuff like that? How many of you guys have seen, some of the students have like that little box of pfSense? It's basically this network appliance which you can kind of use it as a firewall, as your network proxy or something like, which you can put in front of or just behind your router, either way.
NetLabs always has a pfSense.
Say again?
A virtual pfSense?
Yeah, so in NetLabs, you will see virtual pfSense, right? So pfSense, so in that lab you did last time with the security onion and stuff like that. So pfSense, so pfSense has, it's open, it uses a lot of open source things. It's somewhat open source now, because they've also been bought. So you can set up pfSense to either use Snort or Suricata, and we'll kind of, those are IDS systems, and we'll talk a little bit about Snort, and you can kind of extrapolate. Suricata and Bro are not very different. So the commercial ones, Palo Alto Networks is like one of the big ones in this whole setup. So they sell their own systems. Of course, Cisco does, but like literally Palo Alto Networks, this is their bread and butter. This is their this is why they exist, right? And then every other kind of like network operator also offers some form of IDS or IPS. You know, IDS usually send a lot of alerts, and those alerts are kind of called incidents, and then you have to respond to them. So the whole job of SOC analyst level 1 is to look at these incidents, and that's actually a pretty good entry level job. And it's and you can kind of learn more and then graduate to a level 2 analyst and stuff like that. But all you're doing is you're looking at these alerts and trying to figure out, should I should I should I take an action or just like target sleep over it, right? So it's an important job though. So like this is the job. I think you worked with Elastic, right? So did you did the SOC analysis, right?
Also like,
Okay, so yeah. So so you were building these rules which will fire on or off, right? Cool. So you're gonna, if you are making these, and like now the job roles and titles change, they are also called detection engineers now. You could also be called as SOC analyst level 2. You can also be called as an intrusion detection analyst. But what you're sort of doing every day is like how we kind of looked at earlier. We're gonna basically read the current threats, like the Microsoft server, the server had like a vulnerability which was some particular vulnerability, and that vulnerabilities has IOCs, like indicators of compromise. And then what you're trying to do is in your IT infrastructure network, you're trying to see if if anything has a attack pattern or type, like this new thing which just showed up last week, right? That's kind of your job. And then you will, if and if doesn't show up, you're gonna just create a rule for it and keep it just in case like it shows up in another day or two, right? And then every day what you're gonna do is you're gonna review alerts, and then you're gonna triage them, whether you think this is just a false positive, it's just like a false alarm, right? And then you're going to ignore it, or you're going to do something about it, right? And this is like really the hard part, because you get drowned in like these crazy amounts of alerts, which in every system like fires a lot of them, because everyone, just like lawyers, want to play safe. They're like, oh, I alerted you, but like but the person who is triaging it is like, his job is like really hard, right? Like I can't go through like everything, so how do you manage it? But this is the area where you will now, with especially with AI, this is the area which is going to change significantly in immediate future, right? Because we're going to have a lot of tooling which is powered by AI on this front, right? And there are some early products around this, but you should expect there will be a lot more, right? And then on a weekly level, you're gonna like update your rules, you're gonna monitor the system logs, and then you're gonna try to eliminate any false negative meaning like someone actually made it into your system, but nothing in your system caught it, right? So why did that happen, right? That takes a long time to figure out. So typically you're gonna do that on a weekly or a monthly basis, right? So that's kind of what you're going to do. You're going to prepare, detect, analyze the triage, which is contaminate, eradicate, and remediate. And then you're going to do some post-incident activities, right? I'm just going to make sure. Okay, I'm recording. Okay, great. So, typically when you kind of set something up, there is a lot of like decision points you want to think about. I'll just talk about them, and if you guys kind of have any immediate questions around it, I'm happy to answer. So, you want to deploy an IDS or IPS system so that it doesn't hurt your current systems to a extent that they become unoperational. What do I mean by that? For example, if your network right now, you have a 10 gigabytes per second network, and you put in an IDS or IPS appliance in that front of that system, and the appliance can only do 100 megabytes per second. Do you think people are going to be happy about that? No, right? So you can't do stuff like that. So you can't really put an IPS if it's going to like completely choke your network, right? And so you are going to say, oh, because IPS needs a little bit more power, you can kind of, maybe I'm going to try to do an IDS and see if I can get like at least like, 7 at least 70% of what my actual throughput is. So that's like one of the things you want to think about. Other is you want to think about the network topology. Like, for example, if you are just have like, you have a network in like Atlanta, you have a network in New York, you have a network in, Washington, DC, and then you're this one corporation, and you can't put one IDS device to try to manage all these 3 networks, right? You're going to have one which is at each of the networks, and then you're going to combine all of them in one way. So you want to think about the network topology as well. Or you might just say, you know what, I'm going to put everything into one virtual network, and I'm going to have like one IPS system. Again, a lot of these things are not possible. And a lot of these things are now suppressed by this thing you probably would have heard called zero trust. How many of you guys have heard of zero trust? Right? So someone wants to explain what zero trust is?
Basically, like, I guess the way kind of by itself, but it's like you don't really trust anything coming in starting off. Like if you don't have any type of intrusion or any type of attempt to access the network, it's like, yeah, zero trust.
True. I Yeah. So the way you want to think of zero trust is like, for example, I'm talking about these scenarios, right? Like, well, you got office in Atlanta, and then you got office in like, New York, and then you might have all the computers on that. And if you made a network there, you by default, you might be like, oh, anything connected into this network, it's good. It's our network. We're safe here. Like it's our devices. So now the idea is you don't do stuff like that, because anyone can actually tap into that network and put in a device there too, right? So you don't trust just by the fact that something is part of my network, that it is. And that doesn't just mean devices, but it also means my employees. Just because someone flashed a badge like X, that might not be that person. Someone stole their badge too, right? Like, so now how do you go to the next level? So which is where you won't build like the infrastructure like how I was saying, oh, you're going to do different offices and have an IDS. What you're going to do is you're going to be like, for everything, I'm not going to trust anything. Everything is going to go through my IDS, right? So that's one way, but that's a little bit oversimplifying. But in a very analogous way, the way you want to think of zero trust, what it really means is like, on your phone, for example, most of you guys either use the Face ID or have the fingerprint reader and stuff like that, right? So it is not trusting your password, right? It wants your fingerprint, it wants your face, right? And so, but it's just not that. The bigger technological change is that the phones now have a very special chip inbuilt in it called TPM, processing module. And your fingerprints, your your face things are stored there, and you are authenticated against that. So it's a whole new level of trusting, right? So similarly on these networks, what's actually happening is not like, oh, I by the fact that yes, I am part of this network, what it's going to do is it's going to go a little bit further. It's not going to be happy with my 3 4 5 6 password, right? uh, but it's going to say, oh, do you have that certificate I gave you? And if someone just implanted a device in there, it might not have the certificate, might not have a TPM, like, and then they're like, okay, this was a Raspberry Pi, was not supposed to be on my network, right? So that's the underlying technology or the intent, but that's what zero trust, because a lot of times, like, you will go on a trade show, you'll go to like, RSA or anything, and you will see like everyone saying zero trust, and half of them don't even know what zero trust is, right? Like, because what is the big difference? So the big difference is that, like, that you are doing a higher level of authentication on everyone. You're not taking them for granted, right? So that's important. So in that context, um, the IDS and IPS systems will evolve a little bit. Go ahead.
So since zero trust, and what that means that some systems have trust by default, like there's some type of.
Yeah, so you wouldn't trust a Raspberry Pi who just has an IP address on your network by default. You would never. What you would want to trust is like, hey, do you have a certificate I gave you? So in a lot of scenarios, the way it was done was there is a protocol called IPsec. So you would try to probe for that, and now zero trust is its own little thing. So you were gonna ask the device like, hey, do you have that fingerprint? Where is that fingerprint? Where is your face ID kind of deal, right? So that's what you're going to try to do. By default, that's what you're going to do. And if it only comes to like, oh, I don't know, my thumb broke or stuff like that, then I need to enter a password kind of deal, like on your phone, right? You're going to try to then come out around, but by default, you're going to ask for the certificate. I talked about this a little bit. Okay, so your hands-on lab this week in NetLab, so this is one of the labs, is identifying and analyzing the alerts. And so this is like a little bit old school version of something which I will show you what you're gonna do. In Try Hack Me as well, you're gonna do a SOC simulator experiment in Try Hack Me. Let me start it on because it usually takes a bit. So we'll come to that. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to start this. So if you, so this is a phishing scenario, this is a SOC scenario assigned to you. You're going to monitor and analyze attacks. So this is similar to what you're going to do in your NetLabs, but this is what you're going to do in Try Hack Me. You're going to identify critical events and then create a case report. So I'm going to start this. In this case, you can use Splunk Sentinel, which is from Microsoft, or Elastic as one of the SIM technologies. I'm going to use Elastic because it's open source. If you wanted to make a lab like this on your own, you could probably. Both Splunk and Sentinel are like very expensive products. So I'm going to start this scenario. It usually takes a bit. So I'm going to And what you're gonna see here, okay, yeah. So it's booting, yeah, we'll come back to it once it boots. Okay, as that is happening, we'll come back to, this is the exact lab you're gonna do in TryHackMe, but it's the modern version of what you're gonna do in NetLab, okay? All right, okay. So we're gonna go a little bit deep into Snort, and we'll come back to that lab once it boots up, after Snort. So Snort is, Wireshark kind of sniffs packets, it kind of inspects them, and, you just kind of look at it, right? Like it collects packets. Whereas, Snort kind of, it can perform detection and analysis on packets. And so the key thing is you are working on a packet by packet basis, right? Like that's the one thing conceptually you want to be aware of with any IDS system. You can combine a bunch of packets to have a flow, but eventually you're still working packet by packet, right? And so you're going to have a lot of processing tools for it. And so for each of these, there is a configuration in Snort. It's pretty detailed. So you can kind of configure a lot of things in Snort, and this is list of them. The ones you probably want to kind of keep in mind is like, Snort has these rules, and these rules are basically these detections. There are free rules and there are paid rules. If you kind of buy a paid package from Snort, the company which sells it, they're gonna give you this thing called Oink Master. It's like a set of rules which are like kept up to date by them and things like that. And then, there is number of other companies which develop commercial rules for it. But what these rules are nothing but like, this whole idea of like someone, like a bunch of cyber researchers sitting in a room and creating these rules for like the current threats. And then they sell you this package which you apply, right? But we talked about rules. What do these rules actually mean and look like? So this is an example of a rule. So this rule is, for a malware backdoor Dagger 1.4, but what basically it says is the content of that packet will have these things in it. Like, at this particular node, like, so this is the signature of that malware. And, this is the SID and this is the revision of that rule. But basically in the content of it, you will find these bytes in it. That's basically what, so that's the signature of this malware. This is by, 80%, 90%, most of the time, 100%, like, especially older malwares, that's how you're going to catch them, right? Go ahead.
Are the rules always like hash maps?
No, so the rules are not like that. This is an example of it. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to actually show you a little bit of this. So the rule format is this. So, and we'll shortly look at Snort as the tool. You will see here that the rule is, it's basically what you want to do on the, you want to alert. Here is a protocol, ICMP. Source could be any, a source port could be any, and then where it is going, destination could be like your home IP address, which is like that. Destination port could be any, and then the metadata. So the message is, oh, ping detected, like, anything ICMP is just a ping packet, right? And so you're going to say ping detected. SID is the signature ID. It's like what that signature is and the revision. So that's sort of what it is doing. So the rule, the the rule metadata has like a message, signature ID, and revision, but the rules can have a whole bunch of stuff. So let me show you some of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this machine. Okay, where is the machine? One second.
Sometimes it's in the first pass. Yes. Yeah. Or maybe it's the last.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was right here. Mhm. Oh, okay. It might be example.
Next one.
No, it's the next
Okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna start this machine here as it sort of comes up. So as it coming up, so the rules are kind of, you will see that you could organize it in so many different ways, but we'll look at how just out of the box snort rules are organized. They're usually organized by whether they came by a community or by a vendor. But if you have been at it for several years, you're gonna come up with your own way to organize it. There is a lot of ways to sort of do it. And so, for example, if you want to prevent anyone logging in the FTP server as root, this is the rule you're going to make, right? And so the rule here is like alert on TCP coming from anywhere going to port 21. Port 21 is the FTP port. And what you're going to look in the content is that there is root, right? And then the PCRE, which is like pole regular expression match for this, is this. So that's how you're going to match it. If this is true, then that means someone is trying to log in as root, and you're going to alert it. So it's very flexible that way, but you can kind of see this is dated from like a bit, and a lot of snort has like pole in it. And so a lot of regular expressions are matched using pole regular expression syntax. But that's at the level what you're basically doing. You can kind of think of, you took all the packets from Wireshark and you're creating a little program, and each of the rules is like a program which is running on the packet, right? And that's what you're doing with it. So hopefully the machine is up. Let's take a look. Okay, there it is. So, this is the machine which has snort in it. So I'm going to open up this and see, right? Okay. So, here you will see that, in the etc snort, there is a whole bunch of config files and rules. So we're going to look at the snort config file, which is snort.conf, and you will see a whole bunch of stuff here. You can use Pico or VI. I like VI.
So Snort is just software?
Yeah, Snort is a program for IDS.
You just download it from the web?
Yeah, it's downloaded from the web. If you use like maybe Kali Linux or anything like that, you already have it on the system. But if you want to install it, you can install it on any Linux system. But typically, so here you will see like, this is like all the variables, right? Like, so instead of like, for each of the rules, if you are trying to kind of come up with like, IP addresses, and you want to just in your rules refer to them as list of IP addresses, right? So you can define them in your snort list. Here are the port variables, for example, right? And so you can you will see like all of these stuff in the snort. So this is the conf file. What did I do? Okay. Yeah, so this is the conf file. You will see it's got like a whole bunch of stuff. And these are like, what events you want, so on and so forth. This is like, it's a pretty detailed tool, and you can kind of take a look in that sense. But what you want to now, what you're really interested in the rules, right? And so if you go to any of the rules here, I'm gonna, sorry about that. All right. Okay. So in the rules directory here, you will see that there are all these rules. See how they are how they are configured. Some are like community and a protocol name, scan and and then rules like deleted and rules, so on and so forth, right? So I'm gonna maybe pick up one example like web attacks rules, right? Like, and so let's take a look at web attack rules, right? Sudo web. Okay, so this, you will see that this is a pretty dated file from 2005, but here is an example rule here, right? And so this is a web attack. So I'm going to read the rule for you. The alert is on TCP and coming from any external network. So anything coming from external, go on any protocol. If it's and going to an HTTP server or on your network on any of the HTTP ports, what you're going to do is there is a message. It says, you're going to do a web attacks bin ps command attempt, right? And so the flow is to the server, and so this is TCP, right? So the flow is already established, so you're not going to look at the synac packages or anything like that. And you will see this is very specific to HTTPS, right? And so it's going to look at the URI content, and if the URI content is /bin ps, it's not case sensitive, then the class type for this is web attack, and the signature is 1328 and the revision is 6. So basically, if someone on your web server is going to try to run /bin/ps in the content, this rule is going to trigger, right? No, PS is it's in Unix, the current processes which are running. So for example, here I do PS, it's going to give me all the processes which are running. So it's the list of all the processes. And then, you can do something like PS, not all the processes, but for that particular user. And if I do PS AUX, it'll give me all the processes on the machine. So these are the rules. And they get, as you will probably see, they get like really, really crazy. Like, and you will see that, for OS top 20, this is very actively maintained. It's maintained by one person. He still works on it. And so it's still used. It's one of the better supported tools. And, so it's been around for a while. So you can imagine these rules, there is like crazy amounts of them. So for all the OS top 12 attacks on the web, for example, you will find snort rules, right? And you can kind of put them as alerts. So that's that. And you will see like, it, it has cold fusion rules, and, you can make, and so this is interesting. You can actually now look at these and make AI rules too. You can make a AI rules file. You're like, hey, someone was trying to do prompt injection. You can make a snort rule for it. So you want to think of it in that way. And then there are like DNS rules and so on and so forth. So maybe I'll show one more DNS rules. So this is an example of DNS rule. This is DNS on TCP. So this is zone transfer. If someone is trying to transfer your zone out, so you know what zone transfer is? So basically, if someone is like, oh, I'm trying to negotiate with you and I want that DNS address which you have, I'm gonna take it. So that's a zone transfer request. And if someone trying to do on your network, it might be kind of shady, right? You're like, who's trying to so that's a zone transfer. And the way you will kind of see is in the content, you will see that byte offset, and then this is sort of like, it's just flagging like someone is trying to do a zone transfer on my record on TCP, basically.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Like those variables like $ external underscore net, is that the format for when you want to reference like an external network, you have to use that variable?
No, so remember I showed you the config rules, it's not.conf.
Yeah.
So what you're basically trying to do is like, if someone coming from outside, not my network and IP address, that's external.
But that has to be that, in order to reference that external network, you gotta use that variable for any?
No,
So you're using it because that's what you used in snort.conf. But if you were just say any, that's okay too.
or you can put a specific IP.
Or you can put a specific IP.
So you can name it whatever you want, basically, like,
An IP address. It has to be an IP address.
but
That's a variable that's referring to an IP address.
yeah, so is the variable part of like the language, or do you have to use that variable to reference like the IP, basically?
You don't have to, you can just put in the IP address directly.
Oh, onto there.
Onto there. The variable makes it easy so that like, if you move from system to system, you only change it in that configuration file and then you're good to go.
Oh, okay. I see
You
what
don't have to go in and change every rule.
Oh, okay. See what you're saying. And then, so the MSG, inside the parentheses, is that part of, Snort, or is that? also-
Yeah, it's the rule. It's the
That's
rule.
Okay.
Is the rule, is the format of the rule. The message is, that's the alert you're going to get.
Oh, okay.
The alert's going to top say like you got an email with a title, right?
And it has
That's
to be
the
MSG, it can't be like message, MESSNG, it has to be
No.
MSG.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's the format which is and there are verifiers for this. So like let's say if you want to create a local rules, we're gonna do this, okay? And just from this example, and you're gonna do this anyways. So I'm gonna create in the rules, I'm gonna say sudo vi local. I hope there is no. Okay, yeah. So here you will see that so I'm going to create this rule here, which is basically, and this is a good example of like, I'm gonna say alert ICMP, right? And it's going from any to any. It's coming from any to any, so any IP address, any port, and it's coming to my local machine. So, this is, so see, I'm using an IP address, right? And I'm saying any, and I'm gonna say message, and so I'm gonna say, loop back ping detected, like that. And then the only required part of the whole rule thing is you give it an ID. And so you always want to have like some family of IDs. So, internal, I'm going to just do 10,000, right? And this is the first revision of this rule. So which is also good, like it's a versioning built in. And so I just created this rule, which, can someone tell me when is this rule going to fire? Right? And so let's try, so I'm gonna start.
Even if you ping yourself, it's still gonna alert, right?
So I'll show you. So I'm gonna run this. So okay. Just 1 second. So I just don't wanna. Okay. So what we're gonna do here is, so there is very limited real estate on this thing. Okay. So I'm gonna run the snort tool on this. Okay. So I'm gonna run sudo. I'm gonna just do sudo snort. I'm gonna query. I'm gonna the interface I'm using. So again, like this. Log. So we're gonna do this, and the interface I'm gonna run this on is LO. Can someone tell me what LO stands for? What does that mean?
IP address, the local.
It's local. It's basically the local network. Okay. Loopback is local. And I'm gonna run /etc snort. Okay, so I'm basically running snort now. Let's see if that is working. Okay. And so what will, like that rule I created, what will detect that rule? So like that, right? Nothing came back, right? I'm going to open another terminal. What happened now? right?
Loop back in, file.
So now it's triggered, right? And so that's basically, what Snort is doing. And you can run it on pcap files as well. And you can instead of running it on an interface, you can run it -r. If you do -r, it's going to run on a pcap file. This is running it live. That's why it's sort of doing that, right? So this is sort of how you are going to use Snort, right? And so you can kind of, there is a pcap file, and if you follow this lab is one of your homeworks. So you're gonna, this is introduction to Snort. There is lot more you can do with it, but you're gonna try to do that, okay? Any questions on this so far?
Or it allows you to identify your cell transfer.
Yeah. So you can, the way you want to think of it is, this is sort of like, you're running a detection system on every packet. But keep in mind, you want that to be really fast. Also, you don't want like to turn your 10 gigabyte per second network into a 100 megabyte per second network, right? Like, so anything you're doing needs to be very fast. You can do a lot of operation with the Snort stuff, but you can also write a pretty weird Perl. This might be one of the ways to trick people, is you might write a really bad regular expression and sneak it into your Snort file, and it's just going to bring the whole thing down, right? Like, so you want to do a detection which is fast. So you're gonna but you can only do a packet at a time, and you can do packets where the flow is determined. Like, kind of think of like everything you can do Wireshark, but now what the only capability you have is you can look at every packet, do pattern matching on every little thing in there, and then alert it out. That's what Snort does. And so you can write, there is how many of you guys have heard of T-Shark? So T-Shark is nothing but Wireshark on a command line, right? And so you can convert T-Shark to be a Snort if you actually write the right script. But Snort kind of does, and Snort also uses the same library which Wireshark uses, libpcap. So it's built on similar stuff. So you want to kind of think on that way. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about what can you, like, what does the evasion, how can you find out there is an evasion, right? Like, so the whole thing is, uh false negatives are the goal in the evasion, like how you can kind of get away with it. An attacker can defeat the IDS and operate on victims with impunity by obfuscating, like by encrypting the thing and then decrypting on the machine, right? By doing fragmentations, by doing a timing attack. I talked about encryption already, or doing a denial of service. So, like how Craig, you were saying, right? It has pattern matches, it has signatures, but what if I just added two other things to it? Then I can, like, kind of like VirusTotal. So that's something you can't really go around it, right? And so obfuscation does defeat these patterns. And so that's why we have this other way where what you do is you do a statistical, you kind of have a baseline for your network, and then you try to see if there is a statistical anomaly in the number of packets going back and forth or stuff like that, right? And so these are all the techniques which does defeat it. You can also sort of defeat it by kind of doing simple stuff like writing PayPal in Cyrillic alphabet instead of Latin alphabet, because your pattern matching is also based on the code page or the system you're using. So there are stuff which people already do stuff like that, but you want to be aware of, like, that's something IDS, like simple stuff like that can't really do much about. right? So, um, say again, say again. Yeah, there is. So there will, but like the thing is, you have to be aware of all the, like if someone built a snort rule not to detect and just assumed everything was ANSI, or like, then you're like host, right? Like, so um yeah, so there is TCP segmentation, which it can't do much about, IP fragmentation, stuff like that. So, there are all these things which you can't like really do. So this is an example of using frag route. I'm not going to deep into, you can kind of do this. So these are like how you would probably like defeat it, right? The biggest challenge is like, encryption, which is also like what of most of like more modern web now wants, like, on the modern protocols, you want to have everything encrypted, and that's also good in a way, because that way things can be more private. But at the same time, on the defender side, it's hard because now everything is encrypted. You don't know what's going on in there. So kind of keep that in mind. Okay. I was gonna say is we'll and we'll jump into more of the demo stuff things now. I encourage you guys to kind of take a look at the snort documentation. I'll talk a little bit about the lab, and then we'll look at the so the one I will kind of talk a little bit about, Alien Vault. How many of you guys have heard of Alien Vault? It used to be open source. Okay. So this is the Alien Vault Threat Exchange. They're bought by AT&T, which got spun out as Level Blue. So like, it's a different world, but there is this whole thing called as pulses. So if you go to let me see, scan OTA. So the pulses are like a very interesting part, like where a lot of these things can be integrated in as pulse. So what Alien Vault is sort of like a community, but it's a community where people, if you are like, especially think of like, JP Morgan, or the Chase Bank, or Bank of America, or like Fidelity, or any of these financial institutions. They have big security teams, and they have people managing the SOCs, and they are sitting creating these rules as well, because they see live threats a lot, right? And so they share it on something like Alien Vault, or something like that. And so you can kind of ingest threat fields, or like it's the defender's way of sharing information, right? So the Alien Vault threat field are called these pulses. And so these pulses are generated by people, and you can ingest them in. So this is sort of one thing I would say. Uh, so, the pulses have stuff like this, right? Like, they will have like the host name, if you find a host name like this, hey, 32 people have reported them to be like a bad one, or like this has got 60 related one. So you're gonna like flag it right away, right? So this is kind of like, this is the cheap threat intel, if you will, almost free. But there are companies like IBM, for example. IBM's threat feed is very expensive. You can get a threat feed like that from IBM. But these are like all the tools you're going to put into your IDS, so that you can have like a better intel, right? So this is one good example. With that in mind, I'm going to keep some time, because I want to talk a little bit about so you want to be a SOC analyst lab. But before we take a look at that lab, let me see what else we got. That was probably the last slide I had. Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna talk a little bit about the how to be a SOC analyst in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, good. Awesome. So what we're gonna do is before we jump into there, let me show you this thing, which is a much more professional version of like what you would see in that lab or what you saw on the post. So for example, so let me pull this one up. I'm gonna make it okay. So so this is, so for example, you know, this is a dashboard of a SOC analyst where the SOC analyst, what they saw was like, oh, you know, I have 21 alerts. And so this is one of the SOC analysts, and what you kind of saw in the alerts was all of these things, right? There was a PowerShip downloads folder, and then the alerts have severity, right? Like, so what I'm going to do is look at this, and I want you guys to walk through this lab with whatever sim you are comfortable with. And so I'm going to see, oh, you know, all these alerts are coming, and the way these alerts are coming in, they're coming through Elastic, right? And so this is the same for this particular SOC, right? And so this is what you would be doing as a SOC analyst, right? Like, you will be sitting here, you're looking at this stuff, right? And all those things, you know, this is very particular of like, you know, these are the logs you're going to look at. So this is the DNS query log. You're looking at the data. So this is coming from your SIM. So the SIM in this case is Elastic. And you know, you're sort of seeing this on the Elastic interface. But Elastic is not the one who kind of created these logs, right? These logs got ingested from all the machines and all the servers on this company's network. And so you're going to investigate that. So this is what this one is. Basically, the scenario is, you know, a live phishing attack you are seeing on, like, let's say someone sent an email to CEO, and you are in the SOC sitting, oh, like, what is this happening right now? And the CEO clicked on something. And imagine, like, this is very real scenario, because the CEO might be, like, you know, on a plane somewhere, VPN connected to something, and then you are in the SOC of that company looking at what the hell is happening here, right? Like, so this is kind of that. And so if an analyst, you're gonna have a virtual machine, and you're gonna have these packets, right? And so the way you are gonna do it is, you're gonna see the alerts, you're gonna see the SIM, and then as an analyst, you know, what's your most loved tool which you have as an analyst? Can you see on your screen? Wireshark.
That's not gonna be my pick. That's love tool. Very love-hate relationship.
So, you know, so that's like how, so, but having said that, like, you know, you can kind of you can take a PCAP, but this will sort of give you an idea of like what a day in life is going to be like. This is a very much like a SOC scenario. This scenario is more like a SOC where someone is sitting and you are the SOC analyst. And so this is assigned to you in this, for this week. And so it's gonna take you about 45-50 minutes to work through the whole scenario, but I would love to talk about it in next class as you kind of go through the whole scenario. Tell me what you guys thought of it. So think of this scenario as a scenario where it's very corporate. You're a bank, and the bank has a SOC and the CEO, and you are in the security operations center working, right? But there is also another scenario where we talked about that in the so you want to be a SOC analyst lab, where, you know, you are a tech company where all your employees have these laptops and they're connecting willy-nilly wherever they want to connect, right? That, and then, you know, all of that, the laptop information, the laptops are called endpoint, which is, this also has endpoint information too, right? But in the case of the SOC, someone actually infiltrated one of the laptops with the C2 server. So a C2 server is a command and control. What that C2 stands for, command and control. And so the way that lab is whole structured, and I just had you guys watch the video and get familiar with it, is how it happens for like companies where the endpoints are very vulnerable. So imagine you are an engineer at Google and you don't want Google's source code to be stolen from your laptop, right? So Google's gonna try really hard to make sure everything is like really locked down, right? So there, what you're really trying to do is, instead of someone sitting and watching at the alerts, you're gonna try to write automations. So if something like this happens, like immediately things are taken care of because it's just a fire hose, right? Even in this case, now with AI and a lot of new tooling, a lot of things are automated. So these things are eventually all packaged up and kind of offered, like as MDR tool, managed detection and response. How many of you guys have heard of that term, MDR? So if you kind of go on RSA floor, you will see a lot of people, we are an MDR provider. And so it's sort of like a tool which packages all of this, and it's managed detection and response. It's a very huge industry. So CrowdStrike is the leader in MDR. So CrowdStrike, like, is the one, or SentinelOne, right? Like, so these are big players, but then that's not like a small 10-person company is never going to have any of that, right? So that those tools, when this is kind of, you can kind of think of this, they call the SOAR tools, MDR tools. So this is like a mocked up version of that. I'm going to give maybe a little bit of chance for Yop to demo the how to be a SOC analyst lab. So the reason to demo that is, Eob worked on it, and we last year, the same class, we had that lab working in our environment, but then it's really hard to get it to enable it for everyone, and especially with students with all different levels, it's hard to get that. There is a paid version of it, but it's not that important that I want that you should kind of buy. But if someone is super interested in it, if someone wants to kind of have a holiday project, then Eob has also written instructions for how to do it yourself. I'm going to ask him to present, but what he's going to do is he's going to show the lab and then show the instructions. This is just so you guys can kind of get more familiar with it. That's something, the same thing you can do at home kind of deal. You don't have to buy like very expensive things. You can run it on one good beefy machine. So he's going to explain that. Over time, as we set up a more like merit labs, we're going to have those things here so you can kind of try it. But then it's a fair bit of work, and it's with people coming from different backgrounds. It's hard to have it as a class exercise, but this is like an extension or like a bonus thing if you guys want to do. And also after class, if you do it, let me know. If you plan to do it, let me know. That way I can kind of help and support you. So I'm going to have Eob share his screen and talk about that. And I'm going to mute myself so he can talk. All right, guys, can you hear Eob on the Zoom?
Okay.
Yes.
No, you cannot hear him.
Now I can share my screen. Okay, I think I can do it now. You guys can hear me, right? Alrighty. Okay, let me share my screen. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some of the instructions. Cool, cool beans, cool beans. Okay, share. Awesome. Can you guys see my screen? Awesome. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is briefly go through a procedure. So I built this lab, or I wouldn't say I built it, but I kind of built on top of a lab that a gentleman by the name of Eric Kapua had made. That lab has been deprecated, but what I did was I used it as a template and kind of modernized it so that basically anybody that wants to participate in building this lab can feel free to do so. And basically, it's a little bit lengthy, but what I did was provided some screenshots. And I was a little bit meticulous so that, there are some steps that seemed a little bit confusing. So I wanted to reassure you guys in case you come to a halt on anything. And right now, I'm just going to go through just scrolling briefly, just to give you guys an idea of what to expect if you decide to participate or, if you want to do this on your own leisure. And basically what this does is it allows me to use VMware. And what VMware is it's something like VirtualBox. It's basically a way to spawn virtual machines. And what I have right here is two virtual machines. And what I did was I configured them in a way where basically we can simulate a C2 payload attack. And what you see on the left is the Ubuntu server. And what you see on the right is the Windows server. And the Windows machine is basically going to simulate the victim, while the Ubuntu server is going to simulate the attacker. We talked about Sliver a little bit earlier. And here what you see on the left side is a directory where I had basically, in the previous procedures of the lab, you're required to download Sliver. And basically, what I did was I was able to, download the payload. And if I press list right here, and I'll show you right here. So this is the payload executable. And basically what we're going to do is use that to do like a C2 or command control with the Windows virtual machine. Now, some things that I kind of want to discuss just a little bit with this virtual machine on Windows side, something that to be considered of is that we're going to make it as vulnerable as possible, but because it's going to be contained in a virtual machine, don't feel, threatened or concerned if that comes across. And I just want to kind of push, or at least, pay attention to this icon right here. You can kind of see that Windows Defender has been disabled. And that's kind of what we want to do in this situation because we want to see C2 attack, in real time. In addition to that, uh, there's going to be something called Lima Charlie. And this is a SecOp tool, cloud platform tool. And what that does is it basically helps detect things, right? So if you have, like, let's say the payload, and we can kind of write rules to detect, to identify the payload and do something to the payload, particularly, to kill the processor or what have you. And basically, I'm pulling up the sensors tab. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to show you guys in the Windows virtual machine that I have both in the previous section of the labs. I did this ahead of time because it's a little bit tedious. If I type in list in this particular downloads folder path, you can kind of see that there's the payload right here. I have my cursor right next to it. And then also there's something called LC sensor executable. So this is going to be the agent that you're going to install or download from Lima Charlie. And this agent is going to be useful in making sure that we can see what's going on our Windows virtual machine. And what that will do is actually do something called telemetry, and it'll take a lot of the data and spew it to the SecOp cloud, and we'll be able to see based on timeline, network, however you feel comfortable to see, like, okay, what's going on with this particular victim. Now, what I'm going to do now is kind of go ahead and simulate this attack. So one thing that I kind of want to mention is that when you do this in PowerShell, please run as an administrator. It's very useful that you, very important that you do that because you're going to be, doing some command that's like administrative level. So what I'm going to do is I have an Ubuntu server. I'm going to go ahead and spawn the sliver server. All right. Okay, there we go. So now, next what I'm going to do is type in HTTP. And what this will do basically, it's basically sending it's actively trying to listen on port 80. And let me try one more time. Hmm. I apologize. For some reason, the job's not starting. On the machine? Not on the Windows machine yet. My apologies. All right. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and spawn the server. Where's HTTP? Hmm. It's stopping for some reason. Let me go ahead and shit. Okay, go. Hmm? Is it possible because it's done on the network that I'm on? It's not allowing it? The Windows machine could, yeah. So what I did is I ran the test 3 times yesterday. I think my VM networking on? Correct. Uh-huh. With the network configurations? Mm-hmm. Now the payload is there, as I shown before. For Windows 10? It should be. I left it on. Okay. HTTP? Oh, ping Google? Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Okay. It's doing the same thing again. The implant, I downloaded through a command. I did a invoke command, so it downloaded the as the SOC analyst procedures had mentioned. Mm-hmm. Running it again. Oh, hold up. Leave it, Charlie. There we go. Yeah. All right. Me. Okay. All right. No sessions. Should I go ahead and start from the top, or I just wanted to secure your time? You know, I didn't. It takes a little bit longer, but what I can do, like I prepared the instructions ahead of time just in case something may happen to the implant, even though it's in the directory. Let me try one thing. Hold on. You said ping Google? Through this machine, you said? Would performing it on the root level, would that make a difference? Okay. Let me do that right quick. All right, cool. Sudo. Great. Okay, let me try one more time. All right. Okay. I think that was the problem. Uh, yep. Okay, cool. Back on track. All righty. Now, next what I'm gonna do is launch this payload. It's running already. Okay. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is use that session by explain. Okay, so basically I wasn't in root. So, oh, right now? So right now, basically creating a session. So that's pretty important so that we communicate with the actual Windows virtual machine. That is correct. And what I kind of want to do is I'm going to use the session ID and I'm going to run a couple of commands. And I'm pretty much what I'm going to do is the commands are going to show information on the Windows machine. It shouldn't have access to its file systems or anything related to that particular machine. It should, you know, be completely separated. But let me go ahead and use the latest session machine right here. So excuse me, session ID 1E284. Okay. Let me go ahead and say info. First one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so but you see here basically is information about the virtual machine. So we see we have according to the session ID, right? We chose that one, and here we can see the payload name, and the host name is actually the virtual machine. Not only that, you can kind of see maybe on the left pane, I can't really use my cursor on the Bluetooth area. It's in terminal, but you can take a look at the operating system that's listed, and it shows as Windows version 10 build, which is expected because in the laboratory, in the lab, you're going to be required to use a Windows 10 ISO. And I want to type some more commands actually to kind of reveal more information on the Windows victim machine. Who am I? There you go. So basically it shows me that it confirms that this is the actual Windows virtual machine. Let me see. Now I'm printing the working directory. I kind of want y'all to pay attention a little about this because it's pretty telling. I'm on a Linux Ubuntu server, right? And when I typed in pwd, which is printing working directory, it shows the path towards Windows. So we pretty much have access to the Windows virtual machine by way of the Ubuntu server. Now let me go ahead and switch over to Lima Charlie right quick. I kind of want to show you guys the timeline and what's cool about Lima Charlie. So we have the sensor on the virtual machine, and it's providing information to Lima Charlie, right? And you can start really like with an overview. It's not, it's not really that exciting to be honest, but I kind of encourage you guys to explore a little bit with the user interface in Lima Charlie. And what's cool about this thing is because you can kind of see things from a timeline basis. So this is basically like, think of like, a lot of logs, all this information that's coming in, it's all time stamped. And if I can, if you can find the actual payload, it may take time to sift through, but then you can do like a quick search. And I know there was sour in the name. Um, try to see if that can actually pull up the actual payload. Sour, see. There we go. So we pulled up here, and that you can tell by the timestamp is around 11:30, and that happened pretty much, within recent time frame. So I know that this particular simulation it worked while we were here. I have some earlier that I did in earlier in the morning, but right here is enough to show that at 11:30 p.m. or a.m. excuse me, at November 7th, we can identify the particular payload from the attack server. Type what? Who am I? My apologies. I'm running on 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I don't have. Can I mention one more thing, Bob? Also another thing too, in the laboratory, or like let's say you guys kind of, come across articles, if you guys want to expand like, your understanding on it. One of the tell signs, and what's cool about Lima Charlie, it lets you know like if the process is signed or unsigned, right? So, based off of, let's say, if I hovered this, we can see that this particular program that's running is signed. I like to think of it, as being adjacent to trustworthy, right? Obviously, in cybersecurity, you kind of have to verify a lot of things. But if I pull up the actual payload, and we know this is, quote unquote malicious, um, as I hover over, I can't really see the signed tag. So that's kind of a way to kind of get your concept or idea regarding, intrusion detection. Kind of like you want something on the, on the spot. You want to, want to know like, okay, is this really extremely suspicious? But, it kind of leads to what measures you're going to take in terms of handling the situations. Yes. You can't? Okay. Oh, you guys can see my screen? Everybody that's on Zoom? Okay. It's just not on the the projector. Got it. So basically, if I could just Craig, if I can just sum it up, what I'm pretty much trying to say is like if you hover over the processes that's listed on Lima Charlie, all you kind of do is just put your cursor above it, like around it. It should, something should populate right above the cursor saying, hey, signed, right? That's pretty much it. Yeah, it wasn't, it's very straightforward, but it's kind of a, if in case how, we talk about 0 days, how quick do you have to react, right? And um, it helps relieve anxiety. No worries. And I think what I can do too is I can provide a video and I can kind of like give the whole simulation and uh, maybe it'll be a little bit more straightforward that way. You want me to put in the chat? I have a Proxmox version as well. So I did this one because initially I thought I was gonna um, uh, run the command or actually do the simulation connecting to my Proxmox server. That's why I had Trailscale on top of it. So I wanted to create a tunnel. But I have another one too in case you guys get more curious. If you guys actually want to have your own server, you can kind of get like a Dell Optiplex, desktop. Something that like it's kind of old, but you can you can kind of update it with a SSD and all that stuff. But you can create the actual SOC lab on that particular desktop and you can kind of access it remotely using like a VPN or any type of tunnel, any software that provides like a tunnel shell over the internet.
Cool. Awesome. I'm going to talk.
Okay, good.
Okay. Sweet. So cool. Any thoughts, comments? I know we have a few minutes before we call it a class here. Yeah, I just was looking, I'll share my screen and then this is one of the things like ChatGPT just helped me make a SNOT rule for who am I, right? Like, so this is like the snort rule for who am I, which is a TCP. It's working on TCP. It's command injection attempt. So, also I wanted to highlight, like, you can, like, a lot of these things were done 15 years ago, so they might have very complicated syntax and stuff like that. But now that we are, 25 years later with, like, pseudo intelligence, this syntax can be written pretty easily by AI. And so don't get caught up into whether snort or not. What you need to understand is the high level concepts, like what it does, what it doesn't, how to use it, what type of rules to add, what the system should be, because that's what defenders are going to do now, right? You don't need to be super good at the syntax of it, but you need to know the strategy, right? And so for example, if on that network, I just didn't want anyone to run like something which I know they might try to run, I would just like make a rule for that, right? Like, um, so that's one of the things. Okay, cool. Am I sharing my, yeah, I'm sharing my screen, right? Okay, cool. Let me pull up, okay. Okay. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay, so let's cover what labs you have for this class, and then you have a quiz. It's going to be up right now. So the labs for this class are the following, and there is a bonus. And I would love if you guys actually, I know people who are doing NCL, not this weekend, but the following week. I would love for you guys to do the bonus as well. So the first lab we talked about it is the NDG lab. The second one is this. So I want you guys to try the phishing scenario, which I showed with Elastic or Splunk or Microsoft Sentinel, whatever you prefer or want to try that the scenario with the whole thing. But then I want you to write one-page reflection of how that compares with the SOC analyst lab. Okay, what are the differences? What you learned, like, and we kind of did that in the class today. You saw me show that the Elastic one, and then Eob did the SOC one. You can kind of see the differences. One's like endpoint management, one's against command and control, that sort of stuff, right? So, but I don't want you to kind of be like, think in your own way. Like, yes, you can use and AI and do other stuff, but when you're writing your reflection, write like how you would write it, like what did you kind of find different, right, in your way. I would prefer and like it. Again, there is no right or wrong answer, so it's all about doing it. Okay. um then you have 50 points for two labs. The IDS lab, which I showed you earlier on Snort, like how to kind of run Snort. And there is a little bit more detailed lab, which where you use Snort with an IPS, which with denial rules or stuff like that. So those two labs will give you 50 points. That's 100 points with 4 labs. But if you want to do bonus, and I really encourage you guys, if you were to do one bonus, do this one. I want you guys, because your final is going to be based on this. So, I encourage you guys. So I set up a little bit of like capture the flag. And so this is network traffic analysis, capture the flag. So you'll see the scoreboard and people as you kind of complete it. It's open for a bit, but there are 2 challenges. There is for T-Shark, and you will see a PCAP. Your final will also have something similar. So I encourage you guys to kind of do this one. This one uses T-Shark. I know we haven't tried T-Shark before, but T-Shark is nothing but like a command line version of Wireshark. If you feel like, you can use AI to kind of find the commands or stuff like that, but more important part is how to do it. It'll walk you step by step on these 2 rules. So these 2 rooms. So I would want you guys to try those. Okay. So that's also on Try Hack Me. So that's the lab for you guys. Let me see. That will be 120 points, but I encourage you guys to kind of do all of those. And then your quiz is based on the content of the last class where we did application protocol analysis. It's got 10 questions. It is due by Sunday. So cool. That is all I had. I know we're right on time. I am in class right now, so if you guys want to hang out, talk, I will be available. Plus, I know also some people had scheduled one or like a sync. So I'll be in the office hours as well. Cool. Any questions, comments? So we got this whole stuff. So your quiz in Canvas case study, keep in mind, your final case study is not due until the last week. Your next case study is on OPM. And then your labs, net labs, and try hack me. So that's what you have. And if you need to, I will encourage you guys to learn and read a little bit more on Snort. Snort's like easy to get started with and kind of get familiar with, but Suricata and Bro are not very different. They are very similar to Snort. They are also very much like, IDS tools used. So let me see if any questions. Cool. All right, any questions, comments? Anyone on the Zoom here have questions or comments?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, cool. I'll send an announcement and a recording after the class. Prepare for your final one. Next class, I'm going to ask you guys. And then make sure you do the capture the flag. What I was going to suggest is maybe once people get a little bit more familiar with try hack me and capture the flag and stuff like that, perhaps like we've talked about doing a couple more like that, but also if people want, maybe first week of December or something like that, we can do a holiday party which capture the flag, if there is like interest. That might be easy thing to do. Go ahead.
Said party,
Holiday party.
holiday party?
Yeah.
I'll bring some pizza. You guys.
Oh, there you go. So you got
The
pizza.
capture the flag, get pizza.
Just to make sure,
I'm gonna suggest it to the new club leads. So club leads, if you want to do a holiday party, we could do one. And
We had a
yeah.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. So I am around. No. Yeah, you should continue. So happy to talk to you guys. I think I have a 12:30, but if you want to talk one-on-one, want any suggestions, I am around. I'm gonna stop the recording here and see you guys in next class.